Practice Management AR Follow-Up Denied Workflow. In a previous video, we discussed the overview of how denials are presented to you within the Prognosis AR Follow-Up module. In this video, we're now going to take a look at the workflow of how you can actually resolve the denied claims. This is done by means of a denied action pop-up. As we see here on our screen, there are multiple choices that we can choose from, and that's going to vary based upon the specific reason for the denial. Now, the denials can actually be resolved in conjunction with the EOB transaction posting by the cashier. That would be based on local workflow. Or it can be done under the AR Follow-Up Denied menu at a line item level, or from the claim details page under the denied charge codes icon if you would like to resolve all of the line items at a claim level. I've toggled in here to Prognosis, and you'll notice I've logged in as my biller, Quinn Perkins. Now, the first workflow we're going to look at is how a cashier can enter a denial and resolve it during the transaction posting. Now, cash posting itself is handled in a separate video, so I'm not going to discuss completing the remittance header, but we've already chosen some claims here that we're going to post a denial for. And down here across the bottom, we see where the transaction is posted by the cashier. And we're going to just select the choice denied. And when we do that, we notice we have the action option here. You'll notice it's defaulting to no action, because typically the cashier is just entering the cash and is not going to be responsible for resolving the denial. However, based on the individuals within your practice, sometimes the biller/cashier may wear multiple hats and may be able to resolve it all at the same time, which again is a local choice. So if that is the case, we have provided the ability here for her to do so. Now, if you are not posting an electronic remittance, the denied reason across the top is not going to be filled in yet. So from the manual EOB, the cashier will have to choose the reason code. This comes from a reason code master that is part of the configuration menu. I'll just go ahead and choose administrative days, just for the sake of our exercise. Now, if, for instance, she can tell by the denial reason on the EOB it's just going to be a write-off, maybe it's an outright non-covered that you're well aware of, then in conjunction with posting the denial entry, she also can simultaneously go ahead and choose the write-off. And of course, there is an action reason here. These reason codes are defined by the practice. So for those of you who have administrative rights to the configuration menu, you can add custom descriptions here. So then based on that reason, if the local practice is for that cashier to go ahead and do the write-off while posting the denial, she certainly can by choosing the write-off option, selecting the reason code, and saying OK. Now we'll see right down here in our cash transaction line, along with the denial, it is also going to be written off. So when she posts the remittance, that denial will also be written off, and it will never go over to the denied screen, which we're going to look at in the next exercise. Now, I'm not going to go through every scenario, but I am going to open that action box back up. You do see the other options here to charge the next responsible person. This also may be a decision the cashier can make based again on that reason code. Maybe the primary benefits was billed in error, benefits exhausted, whatever the scenario is, and she knows that you're going to bill the next responsible person. And then upon posting the EOB, it will actually move that money from this insurance bucket into the next insurance or the patient bucket, whatever the case is. We then have the three options of rebilling the claim, whether we want to do it as a brand new, reopening and resending, or just resending without reopening. And then we have manual resolution choices. And we're going to look at these under the denied menu option. But you do see that in conjunction with posting the payment transaction, the cashier can also process the denial right here in one step so that it doesn't have to then be followed up by another person. Well, now I'm going to go to the AR Follow-Up Denied menu choice. And this is typically where the denials are going to be worked. Now, as mentioned in our overview video, this screen is populated based on what the cashier has posted as a denial with no action taken. If the cashier takes action, as we just discussed, it will never show up on this screen. So as we look on our insurance denied screen here, we do have our claim-focused icons up here in the upper left, and they, of course, are going to be specific to whichever denial we have highlighted. And if you look across the middle of the screen here, you'll see we have some filters. These are designed to help you as a follow-up person to filter the screen to view only the denials that you want to see. Now I'm just going to leave the default values, but you can set these according to your own preferences as needed. We're going to look down the screen here at our example of Olivia Pope. If we look over the tooltip, it says that the payment has been adjusted because the payer deems the information submitted does not support this many frequency of services. So we have various options as the collector, and as mentioned previously, it really depends on the reason for the denial as to what action we're going to take. So while I have Olivia selected, let's look up here at our claim-focused icons in the upper left. Now I don't really need to worry about her demographics at this point, so I'm not going to click on it, but we do have that option if we were getting an error for something such as address or date of birth or something. The next icon, of course, is the umbrella or patient insurance. So I'm going to click that just quickly to glance and see if Olivia has a secondary. And we see here that she does, Mutual of Omaha. So maybe my decision is going to be to just go ahead and bill this denial from Medicare onto Mutual of Omaha rather than rebilling it to Medicare. So to take care of that easily, I'm going to click my denial action, and I'm going to choose the option to charge next responsible. Now you'll notice that my screen has updated with a red CN indicator, which stands for Charge Next. Now, as covered in our denial overview video, as we're working our denials from this screen, they're being held in a temporary status until we actually process them here at the bottom. That way, if throughout the course of our follow-up we realize we may have made a mistake, we can go undo it. So I'm just going to leave it there for now, and we're going to choose a couple of other examples, and then we're going to process them all at once. I could go ahead and process this one individually if I wanted to by clicking my process button. What you need to keep in mind with regards to this workflow, you don't want to leave this screen or you will lose all of those that you have done so far unless you remember to process first. Our other choices other than the write-off or the charge next was our rebills. Now there's going to be various denial reasons when you have to do a rebill, but just for example here, let's look at Gladys Kravitz. Our denial says pre-authorization notification absent. It could be a situation where the claim happened to be produced prior to the authorization number actually being entered, and so the claim got sent before that number was put on the claim. So all you have to do is rebuild the claim and add the authorization number. Well, of course, the authorization number is added at the point of the insurance. So before we rebill it, we want to go in here to the patient's insurance and update the authorization information. So I'm going to click the umbrella here for Gladys, and we do not see it there. So our options are to call and verify if we have that. I'm going to go ahead and close my insurance. Part of the denial workflow and going through these claim-focused icons, you'll notice we have the telephone, which we can produce a customized template locally for our AR follow-up calling. Now this is the example of our standard template, but as mentioned, this can be customized for your local needs. Its intent is to help you as a collector have all of the information you need in one spot to do the appropriate follow-up. For instance, we see with regards to our insurance details, we have the phone numbers. So perhaps you just need to call the insurance company in this case to verify if the pre-certification exists or not. If something is missing, like the authorization, I have a blank line here that we could add the authorization number tag. Now we do have the auth number up here, but we already know it's missing from the claim because of the denial. Maybe our pre-cert department added it after the fact. So it wasn't on the claim, which is why it would be blank up here. However, they may have added it here to the insurance screen. So we could save ourselves from looking at the insurance first simply by coming in here. So there are options you have once you get used to the workflow. Well, in this case, let's say we had to call the insurance and they gave it to us. So now I'm going to go into my insurance. I'm going to add the pre-authorization number that I just got. We'll say it was for the month of November so that it covers the claim that we're working on. I'm going to go ahead and update my insurance and save it. Now we see that the authorization number is present. So when I go into my action, I'm not changing anything on the claim. So when it comes to these options of rebilling, I don't need to create a new claim. I don't need to reopen the existing one, but I want to resend without reopening. Now, when you choose this option, anything that is not part of the claim itself, such as charges, CPT HCPCS, diagnoses, and they're coming out of a patient-level master file, such as the insurance, as in this example, or out of the provider master or the insurance master, all of those values will get recalculated and reapplied during the resend process. So I'm going to just go ahead and say resend without reopen and click OK. And you'll notice the RW in red indicating that this has now been worked and scheduled to be resent when I click process. Well, now I'm going to choose another option here. This top one tells us that it is an exact duplicate. Well, again, we're going to do our research. We're going to look at the claim. We're going to determine perhaps that this really wasn't an exact duplicate. Maybe it went, however, erroneously as a new claim when it should have gone as a corrected claim. That, of course, is an indicator on our I button. I can show you that here by opening it up. And we see down here that our submission code went as an original. Well, let's say that all we have to do to fix it is show that as a correction, as a replacement claim, and that will overcome the denial. So we are going to have to rebuild this claim, but unlike the last example, we actually have to reopen this one. So I'm going to choose the option reopen for resend. And the reason we're doing that is the submission indicator is actually on the claim itself. It's not an underlying external master file that will recalculate upon the resend, as in our last example. And so this time now we've got it updated with our RS action. So I'm going to go ahead and click my process button now just so that we can process these three. And I'm going to show you what happened to that top example there with Susie Sanders. Since we've decided to reopen her, she actually does still have to be rebilled. Now you might want to remember that before you process these, if you are one that needs to print the report or export them to Excel, you would choose that before you process. Now I'm going to go to my claims option and go to unprocessed so that we can look at Susie Sanders. Now you'll notice that on this screen, under our unprocessed, I have the reopened indicator. And it tells me here yes or no whether that claim has been reopened. And in my upper left, I'm going to click my sort arrow. And I'm going to sort these by my reopened indicator. And I'm going to sort it by descending because I want all my reopened yeses to be at the top of the list so that I can easily resolve those. And we see right here our Susie Sanders with a reopened indicator of yes and a status of E. Now the yes that we reopened it and the E entered means that the biller now needs to resend it. So if we go onto Susie's claim, we notice here that it has been reopened. And remember that the reason we reopened this was because of our indicator, our submission indicator. It was rejecting as a duplicate because the rebill went as an original claim and it should have gone as a replacement claim. So that's what we're going to do here. On our I button, we're just going to say replacement, and then we're going to mark it ready to send, and we can resend the claim. Now I'm going to go back in there to my denied one last time, just to look at those last three choices. So we've looked now at the write-off action, which our cashier did in our first example. Then we looked at our charge next and our reopen for resend, our resend without reopen. The rebill creating a new claim is typically not used any longer, so we're not going to worry about discussing that one. But then these last three options, insurance agreed to pay, resolved, and WIP. Now these are going to be used at your discretion based on this scenario. Typically the agreed to pay and the resolved are simply to get them off this list. Now, the fact that they are still on our insurance denied list tells me that the claim, at least that charge line, is unresolved. It falls off of this list, as we discussed in our overview video, when a transaction is posted off of an EOB that is either a payment or one of these denial actions based on what the cashier does. But let's say that never happened. For whatever reason, it's an old entry. Maybe you fixed it online with the clearinghouse. Whatever you decided to do, nobody ever came in here and resolved it, and now you just want to clean it off. Then you can mark it as resolved. Or we talked about using that telephone icon and calling the insurance when you're doing your follow-up. Maybe the insurance says the check's in the mail, we're going to pay it. So again, you want to get it off the list. So these are available for you to clean them off the list when you don't have to otherwise write it off or rebill it. And then the final scenario, of course, would be WIP when you just want to put something on hold. Work in progress means you as a collector have looked at it. You have done something to follow it up, whether you've contacted the physician or the insurance, whatever your scenario is, but you want to identify it separately from those you have not taken any action on yet. Notice now the action shows WIP instead of NA. And then once you process the screen, the WIP stays present until you actually do take an action and resolve them. So one way or another, the action reason chosen resolves it. No action, work in progress, will stay current out here on the screen until you actually assign an action indicating that it's resolved, either by writing it off, moving it to the next responsible person, rebilling it, indicating the insurance has agreed to pay, or resolved. Now, everything we've just discussed has been working it at a line item level. Some of you may prefer to do it at a claim level. If we notice here, some of our patients exist multiple times because it's a single line item per denial, but they may be part of the same claim. For instance, here, Annalise Keating, claim ID 6314 is on our insurance denied as 4 entries. That is the same claim, however. So if you would prefer to work it at a claim level instead of here at an individual line item level, I'm simply going to click on the claim ID to open that particular claim. And up here in our icon row, we have our denied charges. And if you click that icon, it brings up all of the denied line items for that one claim. And you'll notice in the lower portion of our screen, you have the same 9 action codes available to you that we've already discussed. So this would allow you to select the individual line item levels up here at the top, choose the applicable action, and then process. And you could therefore resolve all the denials at one time for the same claim. Now, in review, we've talked about the EOB ERA entry screen where the cashier posts the denial. At that same time, she also has the opportunity of taking the denied action, which would automatically resolve the denial. Or if she takes no action during the cash posting, then the transaction will show up under your AR follow-up denied screen for manual resolution at the line item level. If you prefer doing it at a claim level, you can do that through the denied charges icon on the claim details page. And regardless of where you choose to resolve it, the action codes are the same. You have the no action, which is your default, and work in progress, which means that they will stay on the denied work list to be resolved at some point in the future. You also have the options of charging the next responsible person, writing it off, or various rebill options. And these choices will automatically drop the entry off of your denied screen. And then for manual cleanup, you have the options where the insurance has agreed to pay or it is otherwise resolved during your collection follow-up activities.